and then just rant about.
Sorry, you were saying probably something off record, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
all right. I had like, what is this, a 45-minute preamble before we started recording on this one? Wowzers. That's an indication that things did not go as script. That's an
Hmm.
indication that things we had some surprising results for more than one reason all over the place. Yeah, so let's unpack the event that was Sheffield 26. Of course, there's another one at the end of the year, and that'll be Sheffield 5. But there's a lot of meat on this bone, gentlemen. So let's talk about the podiums. If we have any surprises, what we think the podiums mean, and let's double back from there. Let's talk about the men's. First off, Perk. Perk wins it. Matt Gary has said a million times this is indisputably he's the king of powerlifting, pound for pound. It's not even close. Any kind of speak on that? If there's anybody holding out hopes of catching up or any kind of way, my man came just shy of 900 kilos as a 74. The 83 kilo world record um, still stands at 890.5, I believe, and he did 891. So let that sink in. He's breaking the world record a weight class up. Fell short of 900 kilos, but oh my gosh, it sets up a beautiful encore presentation for the next Sheffield. And I have very little doubt you get another 10 and a half months in him. 900 kilos is going to fall. We're 9 kilos away. I mean, can he put 9 kilos on in 9 months? Yeah, yeah, Kirk can do that. I think he might, if, under different circumstances, maybe he had it on that day. We're oh so close. 9 kilos when you're already 891 is nothing. It's literally nothing. We're talking here. So beautifully done by Perk. He's the best lifter of our generation, and he's still so young. When Taylor Atwood reached his peak and took all three formulas, had the world record, had the world title, and was the king of powerlifting pound for pound, he was already in his 30s. Perk is a young man in his 20s. Where this is going to go, his prime is nowhere near the end. We're not even at the beginning of the end. So it's going to take another behemoth to enter the party and start pressing them. And I don't see one in the immediate, maybe in a couple years. Elliot Sykes has got a lot of steam on him, but it's going to take a minute. 891 is huge. Let's talk about Perk for a minute, and then we'll rattle down to the rest of the podium, like the sneaky shell, and just how phenomenal Shell did, and continue on. But what do you got to say about Perk, Matt?
Austin Perkins is in a galaxy far, far away from the rest of the world. And those are just the facts. This was an absolutely exquisite performance. I think he did everything that he set out to do, aside from totaling 900 kilos, which was still within the realm of possibility, even, going up to his final deadlift. And so I had texted with Austin and Joe leading into the championships, and one of the things that I said to them was 341, 216, and 343, and those were the numbers that I thought that created the smoothest pathway for him that I saw based upon his training. Well, he did exactly that on the squat, came out 3 for 3, absolutely smacked the world record. The fact that he's squatting 341 kilos at a body weight of just under 74 it's just, you can't even wrap your brain around it,
Hmm.
right? It's just unbelievable. And he hit it convincingly, and that set the table for the rest of the day. And he comes in and he lines up his benches, to take that 216, and he does take 216 for a ride on the third attempt and just misses it to just by this razor thin margin. I'm trying to remember if he told me that he actually locked it out, but I think he got called on a technicality. Am I right, guys? If I'm not mistaken, on his third one, because he said he felt like he locked it out, but I don't believe.
I thought he didn't quite lock it out, and that's what
Okay.
he got called for. But he got very, very close.
Yeah, so if he didn't lock it out, he was extraordinarily close. He had told me after the fact that he felt like he extended his elbows all the way, but it was a little bit untidy, didn't meet the standard. But still, even missing that 216, and I had told him, I said, hey man, I told him before, even if you miss the third bench, worst case scenario, it's still on the table for you, to there's a pathway to 900. And he comes out and he has a mishap in the second pull. There was an issue there with the bar not being cleaned. Austin grabs the bar partially or if not entirely on the smooth. And so there was an issue of the bar had been cleaned with the brush, but not dressed down with the towel. And for some reason, he wasn't able to get the bar dressed down with the towel. And so he missed his second attempt on strength. And that was the reason that he decided to repeat 343. So I spoke to him. I said to him, was taking 351.5 ever on the table? Was that ever a discussion? And he said it was, but I wasn't confident that they were going to, appropriately dress the bar down for him. And so that's why he stuck with 343, was to get the cash for breaking the world record. And of course, look, the meet was over with his opening deadlift. So he'd already won Sheffield with the opening deadlift. That's how far he was ahead of the rest of the field. He could have walked off and just, waved to the crowd, but he didn't. And so the reason that he didn't take the 351.5 is he just didn't have the confidence that the spotters and loaders were going to go ahead and clean the bar. And I think, look, he hit that 343 convincingly. I told him after the fact, I said, I think you had 351.5. I think it was there. And he said, I think so too. So the fact that this is a 12 times body weight total classic has never been done. He's got the highest GL, the highest. I don't even give a damn about all these formulas, but when you check them, he's got them all, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got all of those too. So I don't know what more this guy needs to do. This was just an absolutely otherworldly performance. I couldn't be happier for the guy. It's exciting to see him drop the hammer and put his foot on the gas, right? And give the world a glimpse of what he's truly capable of. And to your point, Ryan, there is still a little bit more meat on the bone. Like, he can total 900, and I believe that he can go over 900. He just barely missed the bench and had a mishap there with the bar being clean on the deadlift. So there's just not enough superlatives that I can give to this performance, but congratulations to him. I think the entire powerlifting world thought that this was, a foregone conclusion, at least on the men's side. And he lived up to the hype.
And this is what we always wanted to see. This is why in 2025, he left the door open for some people to be like, wow, Bob Matthews is a 105 beating 120s. Well, Joe B's almost caught up to 93s. If you're sandbagging and holding back, you leave that conversation open. Even then, I thought, no, Perk is the pound for pound king. I think most of us did still. But to even have that this conversation was only able to be had because he's holding back, not revealing his cards. And as we often say, potential is one thing. What you do in the gym is one thing. You got it. I think he's good for is one thing. I wouldn't say I think he's got 900, and there would be people being, oh, here's Ryan hyperbolic again. Well, when you drop the hammer like you finally did at Sheffield, it closes the door on that kind of conversation. Yeah. And thank God, I think, thank God he is. And I think he felt that critique from 2025. I know he did. And he listens to the podcast, and obviously even on the podcast, he's on the naughty list for sandbagging. He's like, you know what? The hell with this. I'm going to drop the hammer. I'm going to silence everybody. Oh, buddy. Did he silence everybody? I don't think there's anybody who has anything to say about any kind of running for the pound for pound king, at least right now. I know things change very quickly in powerlifting, but as of right now, he has to be the undisputed king, and that's that. And if he goes into Worlds, he was talking about, I'm going to go for 900 every single time. My man, you go in the World, you could do 890 again, do it smooth, do it clean, and 900 kilos at Sheffield and up, and you don't got to push. I know this is almost a response, and maybe too big of a response from the criticism from 2025, but you did phenomenal at Sheffield, and he was disappointed. He said on the podcast we did an in-studio, would you guys be shocked to hear, in an in-studio podcast live at Sheffield, he said he literally cried most of the night, disappointed in his performance, not hitting 900, not meeting his own expectations. Would you guys be surprised by that?
I wasn't. I'm disappointed by it because I know there's how I would like him to feel, but how I knew he would feel if he didn't hit 900 because he really came publicly out and committed to hitting 900 and said there is no ifs, ands, or buts. I will do it. Anything but a 900 is a failure. In some of those exact words or in other words. So I think as an athlete, I can relate to that as going when you really do pull a Babe Ruth and you point and you miss, you feel like you're a failure, even though you had the most dominant performance that has ever occurred in men's powerlifting ever, arguably, um, in terms of historically and just like right now. When we think back to Taylor Atwood and his massive total at USAPL Nats and how he almost clapped, the 83s, that was unfathomable in our minds. This is like 60 keys more than that, 50 keys more than that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it wasn't that long ago. We're not talking about like comparing the 2010 era of like, you know what, hey, like the some of like the world champions 2013, 2014, they're going to be in the what do you call them, the Pioneer Hall of our Hall of Fame. No, like quite literally, we're talking about an active competitor who was in the mix of being considered the GOAT. Taylor Atwood, who is still coming into his prime as an 83, who now we're going, yeah, it's Austin. Like I'm comfortable saying that, and not to take anything away from Taylor, but he is him.
Rory?
More or less the same. I think athletes need to strike this like quite difficult balance between accepting the roses for the things that have actually happened and always pushing for a little bit more. And it's very easy to fall on either side of that. And and part it can be a good thing to always want more because it sort of pushes you to higher levels. On the other hand, I think it is important to be able to recognize the successes that you do have for what they actually are rather than what you wish they were. And if you don't do that, it can be like difficult to maintain the level of intensity and the momentum of for not sort of like recognizing those successes.
Uh, well said. I think the reason why he is who he is because he literally will cry himself to sleep for not hitting 900 kilos, which is unfathomable. And that hunger, that drive. And then I do believe as time separates him from that moment, he'll be able to look back and be proud of it. No question. The next day it was already turning around, he said. It already felt a little easier, and he's getting proud that he had actually went head up with all these world champions, did some historical numbers like 891, out totaled the 83 kilo world record. Like when all this was being relayed back to him, it was getting softer in terms of the emotions with it. And I'm sure a week later, it's like, okay, I'm happy with it. But in the moment, it is what drives him. Eric.
Yeah, two things from a sports psychology perspective. If you look at the literature on this, and then I'll stop sciencing on our recap and save it for later. Um, Intrinsic motivation is a huge part of long-term athlete success, and Austin started early. He's pushing himself to his peak. He's going far. He has talked about when I might retire X, Y, and Z. He's a new father, etc. But um, he's not someone who is benching his own capability to the other athletes around him, and he's so far above them. And a lot of athletes just kind of scale their level of effort and their self-perception to their opponents. Some athletes, the best athletes, whether that means they are, I say best as far as their own capability, because this happens in someone who is, 15th at regionals, but they've taken themselves as far as they can. But it doesn't have to happen in someone with Austin's talent, but it does. He's
Mm,
driven by, did I meet the expectations of what I have set forth and what I believe I have capable? And also, I'm willing to risk it by putting it in front of other people. And I think to his credit, the other thing that I think is really, really good is resilience. And he's showing both. He didn't meet his full capability, but now he is framing it in a facilitative way to make him better in the future rather than like a Ronda Rousey, like I finally got knocked out. It was public, and you can see that she is probably more the example of what we would call perfectionist concerns. I'm driven to try to be perfect and a high level athlete because I'm afraid that I'm actually not, that I'll be judged and pressure from outside. And I don't think that's the primary thing happening with Austin. He's showing what's called actually a facilitative aspect of perfection, called perfectionist striving, where it's not about I'm afraid of failing, although it might be there. But the dominant thing is he has a motivational structure that is intrinsic and drives him to constantly be better. And that is exactly what is displayed by, you know what? He had a rough day, he had a rough night, but now a week later, he is finding a way to make this something that motivates him rather than cripples him. So that those two combined factors are why he's able to express his truly once in a multiple generation talent that we're seeing, um, alongside of everything else that you need: good coaching, level-headedness, not getting hurt, yada yada yada.
If he crosses 900, I don't know if we'll ever see another guy like him again. It's crazy. I shouldn't say this because monsters come out of nowhere, but it feels so crazy special and he's so far ahead. It's
I feel like he's now ascended to the same level as the Gotta Sitko
yeah,
based on this performance. I'm
yeah.
comfortable with saying they're on a similar level now. And but I think before he was the men's best, but man, Agata is something that is just untouchable. And I feel he is now similarly untouchable.
And only now that he decided to drop the hammer and not hold back. That's why. Frig. God bless. I'm glad he's healthy to do this. What if something had happened and we never got to see this? That happens. You can't go a year holding back because the next year isn't promised in sports. That's why I'm like, oh, you got to be careful. Holding back and set like sandbagging a year is like, it's that's a tough one. You can't take these things for granted. Injuries pop up. A Brett Gibbs will happen, and you bow out in your prime. Jesse Norris happens, you bow out in your prime, and you don't come back, or you do, and you're not 100% anyways. But anyways, okay. So we're talking about 900 kilos. I don't know if you guys seen, but dropping down to our uh, the second place finisher at Sheffield, Shell Becklin, just posted up his training leading into Sheffield, weighing in at 69 kilos and change. He did 792.5 kilos. 792, which is, oh, we're getting 7.5 kilos away from 800. And yes, he was 69 kilos and change, so he hadn't cut yet. Not the final water cut, anyways. It was in the gym. All the reasons we already know. Blah blah blah. It's cliche to say. I understand. We all understand at this point. But my God, the egg on a lot of our faces. First off, so sneaky. He's been cutting since August. He also said, and he was DMing me the whole time, talking about, Eric was right. It got harder. Remember, Eric, you saying at
Mhm.
Euros, he's a 74 and he looked like a filled out 74 and his total still came down. It didn't go up. At Worlds, cut down to 66. He did 742.5 and maybe the strength isn't going to be there again. And, talking about, and you have like obviously a PhD and know your way around this. And he actually was DMing me saying what Eric is saying is true. I got no rebuttal to this. And I honestly think it was true. But they changed some things up after World Games. By the way, World Games moved up a weight class. Still, the strength didn't come up. Like it looked like he was almost like he cooked his body for that one special moment in Sheffield. So when it literally, when you put the weight back on and your total doesn't go up, it looks like okay, you did some severe damage to get that night of greatness. Hey, God bless. You've been in the game 20 years. If that's how you go out, and now you're just gonna have fun. But in August, when he decided, you know what, I'm going to make one more run at it. And they made some changes in how he lost the body weight. He said it was easier this time. It was comfortable this time. And his total, I thought when I heard in the morning he went 66. First off, I was like, holy shit, it keeps happening at Sheffield. That's why it's beautiful they don't have weight classes. You miss weight, you don't lift. It's going to keep these surprises happening, which is wonderful. It makes Sheffield an anomaly in that way, and they want it that way. It's great. Now, when I heard he went 66, though, if I'm honest, I thought sneaky, but it'll probably be even less than 742.5. But what the hell? It's going to be a lot better than last place if he went 74 because I thought the trend was going to continue. In terms of like this is just going to keep sapping him. The fact he did broke into the 780s and out totaled what he did last Sheffield. Out totaled. He ended up second. How many people win Sheffield, come back, and then go second? The way the formatting is, you got to be I got that shit go or perk type level. Like this is what we're saying. Shell is all-time greatness alongside. As a matter of fact, his resume is probably more robust. He's been doing this for 20 years. In equipment, out equipment, world games. What do you want? Winning Sheffield, winning worlds, multiple weight classes. It's insane. Breaking world records in the 83, 74s, and 66s. It's nuts. It is. He is an all-star, special human being, pushing 40, father, so beat up. I have no idea how he keeps being able to do this, but here we are. I'll throw this to you first, Eric, due to this is far more your domain. But I'm at a loss for words for this guy. How special he is.
I could not be so happy to have been tricked ever and fully ruin my at least my men's side of my predictions, along with a few other things that we'll talk about. But first, let me say this: you come to a fork in the road if you decide to compete in bodybuilding, and this will be relevant to powerlifting, I promise. Where you go, okay, I'm glad I ticked that off the bucket list. I'm really proud of myself for being able to do it, but that was not worth the cost. That was crazy. And that's not even to compete in like a real sport where you do a total and you can get paid. That's to get a plastic trophy and wear a Speedo in front of seven strangers who subjectively, judge you and tell you that you look good or not while you're naked and emotionally vulnerable after, tanking your testosterone down to hypogonadal levels. Um, and any rational person would say, yeah, that should only be a bucket list. Why does this exist? This is crazy. But us bodybuilders, we go, man, that was a car crash. But you know what? I think next time I can buckle my seatbelt, tweak my distance from the airbag, and maybe just loosen my body, kind of like because DOI drivers they don't get hurt as bad. And this next time I'm going to purposely do the car crash, but it'll be better. Um, it's not a rational decision. I've done it 20 times, and I've coached hundreds of people to doing it. But I have so much perverse respect for people who decide to stick with the sport because it is literally for almost no one competitive bodybuilding. And the leanness level that Shell has to get down to compete in the 66s, he would probably look appropriate on stage. That's why he felt the way he did. However, the methods that you use to get there can make that process even worse, or it can mitigate much of the stress and the strength loss that you have. The first time I did a show in 2007, my bench dropped over 100 pounds. I did not get into true stage condition. I belonged on stage. I lost a lot of muscle. I let the fatigue make a coward of me many times in the gym where I'd look at the weights and go, you know what? I can do 15 reps today instead of my plan 6 to 8. And the next time I dieted, I got leaner and I came in bigger. And the next time I dieted, and next time I dieted, the next time I dieted, you get that process down and you learn to embrace that process, but you also do improve it. And almost invariably, the second time you diet down for a bodybuilding competition, it is light years better than the first. But a lot of people just don't want to go, yeah, I'll take some more PTSD. Just to give you an idea of how mentally stressful this can be, I put on 48 pounds in 2 months after my 2007 season of dieting down. And I probably could have been diagnosed with clinical binge eating disorder. That's how much I messed myself up. And also a reflection of how poor my approach was. I didn't have a coach. This was literally almost 20 years ago in terms of what we knew. I was doing some really dumb things with my nutrition, really overdoing cardio. And I'm not saying Shell did a lot of dumb things, but it's always really, really hard the first time. And I think huge kudos and respect go to him and Kedrick for one, having the courage to do it again and not knowing if it's going to go well, and finding so many ways to improve upon it. And also not doing it 2 years later, but jumping right back in, just basically right after he's barely recovered. Because I competed '07 and I took '08 off and then I competed '09. So the physical recovery is one thing, but the mental recovery and willingness to go, you know what? That Icarus story, he just needed more resilient wings. He just needed to spray the wings with some, like anti-burn stuff and get a little closer to the sun. Oh, then it burns and falls down. And that's what he did. He's probably not feeling great. he was able to preserve even more strength. He improved upon his total from the first Sheffield, and I could not be more impressed, more proud, and yo, the sneakiness, legit. Like I am mad impressed. So Shell, I know you listen to the podcast. Well done, mad respect. Whether you donned the speedos or not, you are officially, and you probably don't even want this, an honorary competitive bodybuilder.
Um, Let me throw this out here. Can anybody steel man case that Shell is doing to the 66s what Perk is doing to the 74s? Because you telling me a 66 is even close to 782.5.
Yes. I think the case here is that he is continuing to add significant amounts to the world record total. Like yes, it's air quotes only 8 kilograms lighter, and the total is like pretty substantially less. Um, and like you could make some arguments about that, but the fact is that last year he put a substantial amount on the world record total. This year he came in and put another 1.5% on the world record total. Um, I think you could say that if he decides to keep going through the car crash, which I don't think anyone would blame him for not wanting to do that anymore, um, that he would be able to continue to do that. Like we've seen him, not particularly recently anymore, but we did see him hit sort of circa 800, close to 66. I don't remember exactly what his body weight was at that point. That was about a year ago. But that would still be another 18 kilos on top of the world record total. That is a almost, trying to do the math in my head, that's almost another 2% on top of the world record total. If he could put a significant percentage on last year, another 1.5 on this year, another 2% on next year, like that's getting that world record total very, very far from what anyone else can achieve at the moment.
And he will have won up Perk head to head at last Sheffield. Perk gets him this Sheffield. And then if Perk is a victim of his own success at the Sheffield later this year, but Shell actually has some room, I mean, it'll be right down to the very last pull. It'll be delicious like that, right to the very last bite. But we got a rivalry here. And if you look at Perk in the other 74s, there's a definite spread. I want to see what Elliot Sykes can do at U.S. Nationals. I don't think Elliot's going to surpass Perk, but the spread, I'm interested where the spread percentage wise will be. And then when you look at Shell, 782.5, and the spread to the other 66s,
Yeah.
I'm just percentage wise, I'm wondering, is Shell as dominant as 66 as Perk is at 74? And if he's not, it's still a conversation and it's close. Like we're literally in greatness here. What Shell is doing, like if Shell crosses 800, that's my next question. Park that for a second here. But does someone else want to dive in, Steelman casing this, that what Shell is doing to the 66s is akin to what Perk is doing in the 74s?
Yeah, I'm actually running the math right now just because I'm looking. Because the closest total to Austin Perkins is Taylor Atwood's 838.5. So that is 53 kilos, the spread that he has. So Austin has a 6.3% lead over Taylor. And I just ran the math. I believe Chell has a 6.4% lead over Joe Jordan. He's 49 and a half. Just call it 50 kilos. So honestly, it's a wash. They're basically even. So yeah, it is as dominant of a performance, or I should say, a dominant over the rest of the field. To your point, Ryan, until we see what Elliot Sykes is capable of but that's until. So as of today, it's yeah.
And listen, Elliot Sykes, which is a couple months away, again, he doesn't have to bypass or catch up to Perk, but he mitigates that. Then Shell becomes the most dominant.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Points. Yeah, six.
I'm just saying, Shell will become the most dominant unless another 66 at Euros or US. Go ahead here. You're getting uncomfortable.
Can I autistic traits on this, and then probably Rory will appreciate it as well, because I know where we sit.
I might get a little autistic myself, but go ahead.
It's a spectrum of symptoms, and I may or may not be a little neurodiverse, but the reason why I can't agree with that specific I will agree with the statement that within the context of their weight class they are comparable.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the struggle I have is that when you look at the bell curve distribution of the weight classes themselves, the 74s, 83s, and 93s are where about 50% of male powerlifters sit across them.
That's fair.
So to be as good as like if you can be the best pound for pound lifter and be in one of those three weight classes, it is kind of by default more impressive than if you can do it.
Agreed.
That's why like a like a Sergey Fedosenko or a and less so. 66s that have absolutely grown a lot. We've seen that weight class evolve, or like what Chell is doing. It's so far above them that
Yeah.
I think it is incredible. And you could definitely make the case that he is almost on that same level. But I think because it's the 66s, it still leans towards Austin, in my opinion.
But what I'm saying is, keep in mind, I agree 100%, but I worded this exactly the way I worded it specifically because of that. There's no question. The more competitive field you rise to the top of, that's why the untested. When people are like, "This guy in the untested has broken 3 weight classes in world records," I'm like, "How many people are competing in the untested in these weight classes?" It's not. It's not unrespectable. I respect it. I'm just saying to compare that to what Perk is doing. There are people like, well, we have people like that in the untested for no, you don't have Perkins in the untested. I'm sorry you don't. And to compare like, well, this person's breaking 2 different weight classes over here in the untested, but it isn't as stacked and deep a class. And so I agree with you with everything you said. That's why I specifically worded just purely is he doing to the 66 what Perk is doing to 74s. It's not as impressive due to it's impressive, but not as impressive. 100%, 100% agree on that. But in terms of resumes,
Yeah.
I remember
Hmm.
asking when everyone's like, Atwood's the GOAT. Atwood's the GOAT. Now, when we're looking at resumes, do who has, in terms of classic, all right, in the equipped, you have like Oleg and people who have got like 17 world records or more. It's crazy. But in terms of resumes in the classic, are we starting to look at what this man has done due to, again, taking into account you have previous eras that were a lot softer, we were pioneers, and you could win with totals that just wouldn't even get you top 20 now. He was there then, and he's here now. And when you look at resumes, is there a better resume? Let me throw this to you, Matt, because you're a freaking historian. Who has a better resume of these since the classic era came in than Shell?
Yeah, I mean, classic resume. I mean, Atwood's won 3, right? Backlin's won 2 when we're talking world championships. Um, so yeah, I mean, Perkins has now won 2 in a row, and he's set the table to win a third one this year, obviously. Um, so yeah, I mean,
You'd be
I,
remiss if you didn't mention that Shell won Sheffield. Shell's
yeah,
also like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And Shell was at
sure.
World Games for the
It was at
Classic.
World Games. Yeah, 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 it
He's
was right. I
and
mean,
Euros is international and tons of killers like and
yeah,
also in so obviously he had a rivalry with Atwood as well, back and forth they went.
right.
I don't know, man. He's also broken world records in 3 different weight classes. Not many people have done that. He broke the deadlift world record as an 83. I don't know. There's it's starting to get tough. And even if I was saying classic, what if you throw in there? Oh, by the way, he also won world titles in the equipped and world
Well,
games in the
I mean,
equipped. Then it becomes
yeah,
what are we doing?
it's right. Exactly.
If you just want to
Exactly.
open it up and say
Right.
judge him against the classic guys, but you're allowed to also lean on what he's done as a whole. I mean, that's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Yeah. His resume,
And
Chel's resume
longevity
is
wise, who's got his
incomparable.
longevity? And
Yeah.
and if long like if peak matters, and then also people like seeing the highest star, like what on one freaking night he was so special. He's got that when he won Sheffield. On that one night. And then people also like to say, yeah, but I like longevity. Well, then you like Shell for both, huh? He has his Sheffield moment when he dropped down and just slaughtered the goat slayer, they call him, right? When in an era when everyone's goats and all the goats showed up, all the world champions around from the different weight classes showed up and he slaughtered them all. And that was his night when he won that Sheffield last year. And then do you like longevity? My man's been competing for a quarter century at the top of the food chain. I don't know.
I'm just looking
I
it up
asked.
now.
So go ahead.
His
Yeah, yeah.
first meet was 2007, so just closing on 20 years. His first world title was 2011, so he has been a
But
world
that's it then.
champion for 15 years.
Yep.
That's a wrap, son.
Insane.
That's a wrap, son. When I asked Taylor, like before he'd done a lot of this, was a couple of years ago. Taylor's like, he's got a better resume than me. Like it's not for Taylor was like, it's not me. I thank you. I think my star shined bright in some moments, but it wasn't me. So
He,
uh, go ahead,
yeah,
man.
I was just going to add. He and I had a really good conversation at the banquet, and so this is, yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate surprise, gotcha, ninja, gangster move, whatever you want to call it. This is just the
Yeah.
ultimate. I mean, I will never pick him to come in last ever again. I mean, it's shame on
Are
me
you kidding me?
I mean, just absolutely repugnant that I would do such a thing.
That's exactly
But
what I was
yes,
thinking.
yeah.
Repugnant.
So the joke is on me. And look, I do think, and I'm not just saying this. So this is not just hyperbole. I was talking to him, and I said to him, I wrote down some numbers, and I typed them in my calculator, and I ran them by him. And I honestly think, I mean, there's a pathway for him to get to 800. And he said, look, I don't think it's going to happen this year. He admitted as much. But I mean, you're talking a squad of circa 265 to 270, right around a 200 bench, which he's basically already there, and a 330 to 35 deadlift, and that gets him right there to 800. So he's not far away. I mean, he just put up 782. And to Eric's point, the more he does this, the more comfortable it becomes, the more of he nails the process. He and Kedrick have got a great recipe going now. And the more he does it, the more comfortable he becomes, and he fine tunes this thing. There's a real possibility that in the future, and he even said, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I feel like I can put together that perfect day and get 800 kilos at 66.
Okay, I got a
so,
question, and we're gonna swing around the table with it.
so,
First off, I'm just saying the Goat Slayer might still yet be able to claim another goat and Perk if they meet again at Sheffield later on this year. I know he already beat Perk in last year's Sheffield. Now they got a rivalry despite them being in two different weight classes, but they're the two best lifters pound for pound in the world. But let's put a pin in that. I love that. But does Shell hit 800 kilos before he wraps this up as a 66? I'm swinging around the table. You guys take a minute. And remember, he just did 792.5 in the gym in prep for this.
yeah.
And he was 69 and change. In prep for last Sheffield, I mean, he was at like 70 and he's doing like 815 or whatever. Like he's just got to keep fine tuning as per Eric. Keep going, closer, closer, closer. And then he could hit it. Or I mean, maybe he gets as far as 790s and never quite. It's this is tough. This is by no means hyperbole Ryan that has Pete Spence rolling his eyes sometimes. I'm going to swing this around the table, and I want you guys to give me a yes or no. Not this year, just period as a 66 in his career. Ooh, did I just open it up? What did I do there? Tickled your loins, didn't I, Eric? Yeah, I did, buddy. Yeah, I did. Um, what are your loins telling me?
They're tickled well. So thank you for that. Uh, in his career, if he sticks with it, yes, but it won't come from bench. His bench will be stuck if he stays at 66 within
Oh,
2.5 kilos.
what an
That's my.
interesting
I'm going to
what
make
an interesting
that
caveat you decided.
specific of a caveat. He'll find it on
Very
deadlift
specific.
primarily.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
Very specific way of wording this. If this happens, you got so specific when I didn't even ask you that like it's the weirdest shit in the world. I hope it happens too. Rory, what do you think?
I'm just imagining Eric looking at his crystal ball and being like, "Yes, yes, there's a
I know. It's like,
270
did you
squat
see
coming."
something? I know. When someone gets so specific to you, it actually makes it more believable. I know Eric is good at psychology, so that's why he's like, if I start throwing weird specifics, people are gonna think I know.
No, I'll tell you why. When you diet, you lose fat mass off your butt and your chest, and the sticking point on a bench press is the lowest point. So your arch decreases, it has to touch lower, and it gets exponentially harder in the lowest portion. So
Mm,
the leaner the leaner you get, the bench almost drops for many people on a kilo to kilo basis, and it is the most responsive to gaining and losing body weight. And it is the most stubborn when you're in a dieted state. And there's just not a whole lot you can do with it. And it's
I,
so interesting because like you can see people who are they can maintain their chest press strength and they just like bench is not loyal when I diet. It's very common.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
agree with Eric. I think he's going to do it in his career as a 66, but it's going to be more like 270, 195, 330, whatever that it needs to add up to that.
Okay, we're all going to agree with Eric after he just dropped. I'm going to say, okay, I agree with Eric. His benches are going to move. But Matt, what do you say? Does he make it?
yes, he's going to do it, and he just yes. And then I'll just add this two quick things. He can bench 200 kilos. I'm telling you, at this body weight, the attempts need to be better. He has a very tight window of attempts. He opened at 92, went to 97 and a half, and then 200. That's the reason that he missed 200 was because he took 197 and a half right before.
Mm.
So if we spread out the attempts a little bit more, he can bench 200. So there's a pathway to that. And just fun fact, if he were to total, and I'm not saying he's going to do it, if he were to total 800 at the next Sheffield, Perk would have to hit 912 to equal that mark. Right. So that just puts that in perspective. 800 equals 912 for Perk.
I'm telling you, this is a juicy rivalry. I also love that. Eric breaks out some sports science. You break out some science of powerlifting, and here we fucking go, huh? That's why you guys are amazing on this table. What?
No, I mean, I don't, I think 200 is on the table. I just don't think, he's attempted, he's done 207 at 74, and he's attempted 210.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we're going to see that. We're going to see a very, like, he's 8 kilos lighter, and that's probably right around where his bench is going to be stuck at his best minus that ish. So
if he's aiming for 200, he needs to take 92 to 95 on the second attempt. Just open lighter, make that easy. 92 and a half on the second to 200, maybe 95, but not 97 to 200. It's not going to
Rory, Etienne shot up the rankings, ended up in third place. And my man, sneaky, he was coming into Sheffield in the podcast afterwards. He said, I don't talk like some of the other guys. I don't come out, talking bold or whatever. It's not really my style. And he even questioned, should I? Will I get a little more steam doing this? You got guys like Rondell Hunt. You got guys like Bob Matthews. They're going to be at Worlds in 2026, conceivably. We think anyways. We'll have to see how it all shakes up. But at 2026 Worlds. And these guys will talk. They will clash. They will make videos of each other. They will get in the hunt like this. And he's questioned. He's a silent killer because of that. But he has won many battles. He's won big battles. And now he's surprised everybody by ending up on the platform. When there's a lot of other lifters like Joe B, etc., Anthony, and we'll get into their performances. Tell me about Etienne. Was this surprising for you, or is this a case of look at he's world class, and if some people start missing, that you expected something like this might have happened?
Right. So the surprising bit here is that he finished on the podium. I'm not surprised by his total. That's almost exactly the total that I think all of us called, actually. I think we all said that he was going to be sort of right around the 100% mark. He came in at 100.5%, right? Like, and we all called that. So the surprising bit here is that a bunch of other people sort of shat the bed and did not place as highly as we have forecasted. And so Etienne sort of basically hit what we were saying he was going to hit. And he is a killer, right? Like he set a new world record total at 120 kilos. Like that is a phenomenal performance. And I have to say, it could not have happened to like a better person, like representing the sport, right? Like he is a nice guy from a place that is underrepresented in terms of powerlifting for like a variety of reasons. And you can see even like, he hits this performance and the first thing he does is he comes to the front of the stage and he like talks to people in the audience, and there's this child that he pulls up onto the stage with him, and like it was a really cool moment, right? And so, he had a phenomenal day. He went 8 for 9. He deadlifted 401.5 kilograms, which is just like otherworldly, right? Like 400 kilos in your hands. Took a solid crack at 411 there. He benched well. I think that was a small bench PB for him. I believe his prior best was 235, 345. Like it was just a phenomenal day. And I'm really pleased that it came together for him. Now, should he talk more smack on the internet? I think the answer to that is probably no. But I would like to see him online more, right? Because I think part of, when you get to being like a top level athlete, it's part of what can really help your career is collecting sponsors and people to support you. And so like one thing that like say Russell or he does really well is he tells a really good story, right? Like you come onto his social media, his YouTube, his Instagram, and there's this story, and you go, oh man, I want to see what this guy is doing. It helps that he is very, very strong. But like the fact that he can tell a good story is why he has 500,000 followers, not because he's really, really strong. And so like if someone like Etienne, who's from, a place that frankly just doesn't have as much money as some of the rest of the world, and it would be really good if he had more support, if there was more support for powerlifting in Lebanon more generally, if he could come online and not necessarily talk smack because he's not that person, and like faking that I don't think would be authentic, but being able to come on social media and tell those stories in his own authentic way, I think would allow him to go even further. It wasn't really the question you asked, but I'm saying it anyway.
No, but 100% agree. I don't. People say it like there's only two ways, or even people say it like there's only one way. Some people like, I hate when people talk smack. Yeah, but you need a villain, so you might hate the smack talker, but you tune in to watch him get beat. Just as good. Every story needs a protagonist and antagonist, so it's both. Or if you hate smack talkers, what if everybody was vanilla and had no personality? And I shouldn't say no personality, but everyone was just all likable. It's going to get boring. You need people that you like how they carry themselves. And some people are like the brash type. And then there's the smack talkers. And we shouldn't demonize smack talk. Some people do try to demonize smack talking. And I'm like, my friend, try to demonize Muhammad Ali, and he's literally the biggest sports icon we've ever had. He was the most smack talker, right? Bold, brash, whatever. The Louisville Lip, they called him. But not everyone has to be that. If everyone was, it would be annoying. And it doesn't come off real, it doesn't come off authentic to what you said. But one thing you do want to do is tell your story. And I'm telling you, I'm not Etienne. I'm just reposting him and having him on the podcast. And I get smashed with DMs with people from Lebanon being like tagging me on screenshots of the podcast being Lebanon on King of the Lifts and Lebanon flag, and DMs when I post in the DMs, or sorry, in the stories, pictures of us in studio, and he's one of the people in studio with me, and the people replying from Lebanon. And so to your point, Rory, if he just leans into that, he has tons of people. But just be a little out there talking about your story. Talk about the challenges coming from Lebanon. Talk about coming from a country that isn't a powerlifting powerhouse like US, France, UK, where it's the establishment. Talk about this, but saying I'm still picking up the flag and marching down and entering into battle with these giants like this. Like it is good. But you just being a little more vocal, period. But you don't have to be like anyone else that's already out there. And the fact that you're the first from Lebanon to be at Sheffield, the first of Lebanon to podium at Sheffield, the first Lebanese world champion in the classic. The fact you're the first makes you unique. In sports, we have so many ununique personalities and stories. If you got a unique one, tell it. Matt, what happened with Joe Borenstein, my dude? What when you're looking at this, is kind of an attempt selection thing. It's kind of an execution thing. There's some things out of control with the like chalk and slipperiness, but he didn't have a good day all around. Obviously, he's going to say that. Let's talk about Joe Borenstein, because he was one of the favorites to end up on the podium.
Right. He was one of two lifters, Ryan, that missed all of their third attempts. So Joe Borenstein and Ivan Campano Diaz were both of the lifters who did that. And you're not going to hit a big total when you miss your thirds. Those are your money making attempts. Those are your biggest, heaviest total building attempts, and he missed all three of them. So, he came in, I believe, with a 307.5 kilo PB squat. He went for the big PB at 312.5, and he missed that. He hit a world record bench of 219 on his second attempt, and then up the ante to 224, and that didn't go. And so I just want to mention that for just a second before we get into the deadlifts. There were 11 people at Sheffield, at this particular Sheffield. I ran the data on every Sheffield, but this particular Sheffield, there were 11 people who chose to go for the world record on their second attempt, and then essentially up the ante for their third. And 7 of the 11 missed their third attempts when they did that. They go all in on the second and missed their third. So 7 out of the 11. So there was only a 36% success rate. So, had he gone maybe a little bit lighter on the second bench, then perhaps he might have gotten a third and added a few kilos. But again, that's only the bench press, and we're only talking a handful of kilos. He took the same first two deadlift attempts that we saw him take in Germany. He opened at 332 and went through 357.5. And these are a little bit more pragmatic attempt selections than we've seen from him in the past, where he, at Powerlifting American Nationals last year, he went all in on the second one to hit the 900 kilo total, to distance himself, and kind of try to put the nail in the coffin to fend off Taylor Atwood. And then we saw him do the same, I believe it was at Avances, where he went big on a second deadlift attempt and then came out and essentially had nothing left for his third. Well, this time he took more pragmatic attempts, but I think ran into a similar issue on his second deadlift. He does a hook grip on the smooth portion of the bar and ran into the same issue that Perkins ran into. And so apparently the bar wasn't dressed down properly. And again, that's a story for Joe and Austin to tell, but that's just gleaning the information that I saw from the audience, and then kind of hearing tidbits after the fact, is that the bar wasn't dressed down properly, or at least to his liking. And so he lost his grip and the bar popped right out of his hand. And then I think at the point there, he's in a battle with Jirens. They're kind of going back and forth. And I think at that point, it was a game of chicken. He had the lot number advantage over Jirens. They both put in for 380.5. We kind of assumed, or at least I did with Jirens, hey, that's a placeholder. And I kind of thought it might be a placeholder with Joe. But then Joe just decided, hey, what the hell, man? I'm in 11th place at this point. And so, I'm going to leapfrog a whole bunch of people. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, had he made that final deadlift attempt at 380.5, not only would he have gotten the world record, but wouldn't that have catapulted him into second, I believe, all the way into second place, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that would have put him all the way in second place. So he, at that point, I think you're like, man, I've already missed 3 attempts. Right. And it's kind of like, well, shit on it, man. Like, I'm pushing all my chips to this. So like it can't get much worse, right? Respectfully. Right. Just at that point, he's trying to say, what the hell? What have I got to lose? I'm in 11th and I'm going to leapfrog, 8 or 9 other people now by jumping into second place. What the hell? Let's do it. And then of course he couldn't connect the dots on the final pull. So yeah, just, overall an underwhelming performance, a surprise performance, a dip in total. And now that's twice that we've seen that happen. Clearly not to this extent. He put up the 900, he goes to Worlds, he hits 890. Then he hits a 904 at Avances, and then he comes back abroad and hits 856. And I'm not necessarily comparing those performances to the degree or to the magnitude, as Eric would say, but it's just the fact that now he's been twice abroad and has, underperformed. So I'm not making excuses for him. I don't know. Again, this is his story to tell, but an 856.5 total is not what most of us anticipated. I think a lot of us, myself included, had Joe on the podium. I had him positioned in third place and was expecting that he would break the world record total and go over 900, but just by a little bit is kind of what I was anticipating. So all in all, I'm sure that he's really disappointed. I could tell kind of in his countenance after the meet was over. And then, at the banquet, he's going to chew on this one for a while. And I'm sure he's going to go back into the lab and try to, right these wrongs and come back with a better total.
Previously I seen him spitting in a cup trying to make weight, and I had alluded to that on the stream, and he told me afterwards it wasn't a big weight cut actually. I know you seen what you saw in it appeared as though, but bigger picture, it wasn't that. I think I know he had obviously a bad day afterwards. Immediately afterwards, I saw him. All the athletes went back to the hotel and people were eating. They had a buffet out there open, and he was incredibly upset. Yeah. And I know they're going to be looking back on this and recalibrating. I know what you mean when you say he's had 2 meets abroad and the totals come down. Now, 900 to 890 isn't overly concerning. He won a world title against world-class guys. and
Mhm.
that's like 10 kilos wasn't is it's on the margin. So I'm not too, but I do know what you mean. Where okay, it's enough that you know how people look at Americans, and when they leave America and the totals come down, usually when people are 22, the totals go up. They don't stay the same and more or less come down, even if by a small margin. And you can't help, it's going to happen. People are going to start talking, especially towards the Americans. And I'm not, I don't know, I don't think this is necessarily quite a pattern yet. It's twice. He's going to have two more international meets conceivably on the calendar. We'll talk about this in a second, but he will now have to go to U.S. Nationals to earn that
Oh yeah.
right. Taylor Atwood, throw that meme of that dude looking around the tree, rubbing his hands. Taylor Atwood watching this is like, oh, buddy, if you're a little cooked and now you got to travel, I'm going to see you in 5 weeks, sir. And let's see what happens. And then, of course, Jaden Lowe, whom in his last post somewhat alluded to not having a training session you want, dealing with some nags and injuries. So not entirely sure if he's the guy, but if he's around 900 and Joe B's a little cooked, um, this could be a bit, but you can't take anything for granted. But anyways, it's twice in a row. To your point, he's not hitting PRs, and it's both happening when he travels abroad. Eric, we've spoken about this, and it seems to be happening to Americans more often than not. What are your thoughts on the Sheffield performance, Joe B, and what are your thoughts on is there a pattern forming or what's happening here?
Yeah, a couple things that have already been said that I think are worth reiterating. I think it was actually Etienne, coach, who tagged us and called us either supposed experts or maybe put a quote around it. And
No,
I,
no, no.
I,
That was actually Penna's boy Matthew, who, by the way, I invited to jump on the podcast because he's my boy too, and enter the fantasy league with his name on it, with his chest out. Let's see what's up. And he's gonna have to go into the fantasy league. Let's see where he racks up. And I'll invite him on this. I love debating him in podcast in person about these kind of things. But he's good. He's actually very, very good because he scouts for Penna. And of the where he said the totals would end up, he was pretty flipping close. Penna brought it back. He showed me the day before and afterwards. He's in the Equipe, and he's one of the French national coaches, or he was anyways. And he's one of Penna's guys that they use in terms of scouting. Anyways, go ahead.
I only said that because I think they posted with pictures with Etienne and they're like boosting him up. And everything that Rory said about Etienne, I was super happy. He seemed like a really honorable guy, good person, young, and just a ton of respect for him. And yeah, I just want to reiterate, we all accurately estimated his performance. His placing shifted because of where other people, like Joe, to transition to that nicely, um, had a shocking underperformance, I think, is how we would
Yeah.
probably all describe it. And, if you asked us, okay, what total does he have? He has a bad day. Like, I don't know, 870, not 850, right? So Bargate was a big part of that. And
Nice,
I think
nice.
um, this is actually something I forgot to bring up earlier. There were a few comments of people who were dismissive of Perkins and Joe Borenstein struggling with the bar because they're like, oh, well, these other competitors were fine. And I think what they may have missed is that these are like middleweights who are missing and who are pulling on the smooth. So the narrower you are, the smaller the weight class, typically just because of the frame of the person and where your arms go straight down, you'll be pulling more and more and more on the smooth. And the bigger you are, the more you have to navigate your own body, the more and more and more you'll be pulling on the rough. And that makes a unclean bar that has baby powder on it a huge issue for lighter weight classes and a much less of an issue if you're pulling on the rough. And that's just a kind of a technical detail that you won't know if you haven't been in and around the actual competitive environment. So anyway, minor point. Um, I think Joe is early in his career. He's incredibly talented. He has the right mindset, and he is going to be a dominant force even more so than he is now in years to come. I think he is a bit inconsistent, and that it doesn't surprise me being early in his career, but I think it's absolutely fixable. Um, I think we can take a look at many, many other examples. Your Alba Bostroms, hell, even some of my athletes I think of who went from being inconsistent on larger stages or with travel to being highly consistent afterwards. Once they kind of worked on that and got a little more seasoned. And yeah, I'm sure that he is, and I'm unsurprised by the descriptions of what you guys saw with his struggle. And the final minor technical point, and then I'll stop Eric Helmsing, is that when people see someone spitting into a cup, they often assume that they've done everything else and they're still not there, and now they're pulling out some kind of crazy last strategy. I often will only spit into a cup and eat chocolate. So I'll do a gut cut plus I don't want to do heat exposure. I don't want to do a water load. And I'm just going to do something that's actually kind of easy and just get some gum. And it's gross. But I think when you see it, it conjures up thoughts of wrestlers doing it and they're killing themselves. They lost 10% of their body weight. But on the spectrum of things that are stressful to the body, it's low. It is one of the least stressful, but also least productive in terms of actual weight loss and efficiency of that over time, water loss strategies. But if someone is doing it and they didn't even water load, they didn't jump in a sauna, they didn't even restrict water, it's typically this is actually a normal strategy. And I think from listening to Joe talk about it on the podcast, that's what we're seeing there. So I don't think this was cut related, just to be people aware of that.
100%. Rory, what are your thoughts on Borenstein? Is this a bit of a pattern that's emerging, or do you think just happenstance and it could happen at US Nats? It's given the fact that it's Sheffield, so it's incentivizing going all in like this. And what are your thoughts on it?
One underperformance, particularly one underperformance while traveling, is unfortunate. Two, maybe a coincidence. If it happens again, it's a pattern. And if it happens again, he needs to sort it out, basically. Um, I will say I really appreciate what you've just said about him not making excuses, right? Like it wasn't a particularly hard cut. He's not saying, hey, look, blah, 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 whatever happened. Really appreciate people taking ownership when something doesn't go to plan and just going, hey, look, I didn't perform, whatever the case may be, but not going, oh, yeah, it was the cut. Oh, yeah, I had a ankle strain 16 and a half weeks ago. And so like I do appreciate that.
I was fatigued, didn't want to make my last poll.
Easy, easy.
Oh, maybe we can talk about that. And actually, to Eric's point about people who used to be inconsistent and then figured it out and became super consistent. Jirens is a really good example of that, right? Like up until probably 3 years ago, he was Mr. Inconsistent, and then a switch flipped in him, and he just has been locked in for like probably 3 years. Like he might have had one underperformance in the last 3 years or something, and otherwise he has just been absolutely locked in. So can happen, can even happen to direct competitives. Joseph Borenstein is young. He is learning. Like I think he knew his attempt the day that he hit that 900. He knew that he had taken a risky pull, and that if he did that again, he might not have it anymore. He sorted it out a little bit for Worlds, like his total came down, but his attempt selection was a little bit better. So but actually, what I see when I look at this is poor attempt selection, right? Like more than anything, I won't speak on whatever happened on the bar for that second attempt. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, and sometimes equipment can not be the way that you want it to be. And it happened to two really good lifters on the day. Cool, sure, it can happen. 312 was not a good attempt. I don't think 224 was probably a greedy third bench. He didn't need it. In my opinion, his training didn't suggest it was on the cards. Like I watched a lot of his training YouTube videos leading into it, and like I don't think 224 was ever going to be there. And then taking a 50-kilo jump from your opening deadlift to your third without doing a deadlift in between. Like, if nothing else, it's going to feel horrendous because he didn't do anything to prepare for it, right? Like, if you go from a 120 kilogram deadlift to a 170 kilogram deadlift, that's going to feel a bit rough because it's a 50-kilo jump, even if 170 is not a particularly heavy deadlift for you. He didn't do a second deadlift. Like, he held the bar, but like he didn't go through the motion, right?
I wonder if he touched it backstage.
He
if he had
didn't.
enough time.
He did not.
No,
He did not.
He did
not
not.
enough time. Yeah.
No intermediary.
Your good point. They tried to do that. Very good point,
Yeah.
Eric, because they thought the same thing. Tried to load it for everything Rory's saying, but they couldn't get it in time, so they had to go all in.
Yeah, Sheffield in particular, like the warm up area is like 3 floors down. So you've either got to run down 3 flights of stairs, do a deadlift, and run back up 3 flights of stairs, or you have to wait for the freight elevator that is not super fast.
Oh, I timed and compared both. I remember in 2023.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of 2024 Sheffield like sitting in the stairwell because like with notes, like passing notes back and forwards. Um, yeah, so like I think that was frankly not a very good decision. I don't think it was risky, it was greedy, it didn't pay off. He ended up landing in 11th instead of sort of the second that he was pulling for, the third that we forecast, the probably fifth or sixth that he could have been if he had taken like a more reasonable third attempt. Um, yeah, I think he needs to sort it out. I don't think he's safe for nationals either. Like if he does that again, Taylor Atwood is going to eat him alive.
Yeah, I mean, I remember us all talking about the deadlift attempt selection at nationals, and how like it worked out for him, but that was, he opened the door unnecessarily. So
Yep.
going back to that GOAT conversation, I will tell you this. If Taylor goes to Worlds and wins a world title
Stop.
at
Stop.
83,
You got
hey,
stop flirting with me. Hey, you know what just happened?
now we've got,
I just kicked my panties off.
well,
That's
you
what just
you
I
happened.
don't
tickled
know
you
if we can talk
tickled
about that on the podcast.
you tickled mine, I'm tickling you back, buddy.
Yeah, you are, buddy.
Like if the discussion is who has the best resume, Taylor, Austin, or Chell, that would be a really interesting one because we've got someone who has a dominant world record, pretty good resume. We have two people with longevity, but one who has more longevity, more titles, and then one who has two different, and then you got world titles across two different weight classes. It would be a really tough one. So I think that would be really cool. And not to root against anybody, but I will say I am rooting for Taylor. If we could see him back at Worlds representing the US in the 83s.
And here's the thing: if he gets by Joe B, a cooked Joe B, who's flying all over the world and is cooked, if he gets by him, Joe B's still the toughest adversary at 83. Worlds actually gets easier. Now, not easy, but easier. With all due respect to any other
Oh, who's
83 in
it?
the world,
Jirens wants to enter the chat. What?
that's hey, when Jirens goes over 900 kilos, all right, or 890, but like Jirens is, and listen, also like giving Jirens his flowers, had him on the podcast right afterwards. Jirens
Yeah.
head to head, obviously Joe B was trying to shoot up the rankings. He was loading to podium and not beat Jirens. Got you, like obviously, but Jirens keeps himself inserted in the conversation. Now has a direct head-to-head win over Joe B and Russell Orhe. It's freaking crazy what he's stacking up. And the fact that it's Germans every time. Who's that guy, right? Isn't he that guy now? And he's such a character. Like I don't know. And I had him on the podcast. We had Matt was on that one. Thank you for joining in, now, Matt. But
Yes, sir.
I love Germans for who he is. Like I like hanging out with him, but I also love what he brings like to powerlifting period on podcasts, and he's such a character. And the fact that if it's gonna happen, if Joe B is gonna reach and overreach, overlooking someone, of course it's gonna be Germans. And of course Germans will be like, aha, you overreached and you looked past me, didn't you, young man? Well, now I get this moment all over again. Not quite like winning the world title against Russell Orhe, because Russell was not looking over him. It was direct head to head in the weight class, but still, it just it's right place, right time. Show up. You never know what's going to happen. And now Jerens Kangamu's resume is looking better and better as it goes, and he's got so many stories to tell, and he could tell a fucking story. Let me tell you. Go listen to our podcast, by the way, if you want to get more deeper into that one in particular. Jerens does a great job. But all right, let's talk about the 93s. Because in fourth place was Emil Krastev. Emil Krastev came into this saying, I don't even I care about the overall, but far more important to me, I am the reigning 93 and I want to establish myself as the best 93 in the world. It means more to me to win the battle of the 93s than it does to shoot up the rankings. And for it's not really surprising when you think he's the reigning 93 and he has guys like Russell Orhe who have the world record taking all of this shine, and he's thinking to himself, "Ooh, okay, I'm the champ, by the way. We're going to go head to head. I have to beat him. I want to beat him head to head. let me take some of that shine. You got guys like Will Ball, who was in attendance. Actually, how crazy is that? You know, you're 1920 when you fly to watch Sheffield live and fly back when Nationals is right around the corner, and it's like the craziest battle of all time. And he's like, "Yeah, it's all good." Yeah, because you're 20 and have Wolverine recuperative powers. But anyways, um, okay, yes, right. Eric's saying, "Hey, thank you," but how Emil came in here wanting to win the battle of the 93s, and he did so. And it was a great battle. And now, not only did he win the battle of the 93s against a phenom and the greatest 83 that ever lived, like Russ, who moved up, took the world record, but his old adversary in Gustav Hedlund, and also now Emil has the world record in the 93. So he has the battle at Sheffield won, he's got the world title, and he's got the world record, and 920 ties for the biggest total in 93s. The guy's got it all now. He's got it all now. So he's undisputed. There's no working around it. And he's doing it at the tip of the spear, tip of the iceberg on it. So hats off to Emil Krasnev. I want to get your guys' impressions. Matt, what's your impression of the Battle of the 93s?
Yeah, and the fact that I'll just pick up where you left off, the fact that Emil totaled 920 on 6 attempts, like he only made 6 lifts. So he is so that means that I mean there's more there. I mean, he missed his third squat, he missed his opening bench and his third bench. So if he connects the dots on those lifts, the total is even higher. So he's, to your point, Ryan, he's proven that he's the cream of the crop in the 93s right now, because we've got some others who have not done it internationally. So in Emil's the reigning world champion, and now he won the battle of the 93s at Sheffield. Gustav had a good meet. You know, he was 7 for 9. Kind of finished circa the total that I think most of us had him at. You know, unfortunately missed his third squat on strength, put together 3 really nice benches, and then just didn't have enough left on that final deadlift of 365 kilos. So he finishes with 910. And I think to all of our surprise was Russ, you know, just coming in with you know, just in an underwhelming performance, an underwhelming total. And I think, you know, just looking at what he did, again, kind of like the other lifters that I talked about, went really big, went for that world record squat on the second attempt, which I think we all kind of thought that he was going to do that after seeing the 372.5 kilo squat that he took in training. We know that that was about 2 to 3 weeks out. We all thought that he was probably a little bit heavy, perhaps a little bit high when that weight was squatted, you know, not to competition depth. And I think, you know, he even admitted as much after that he was just cooked, that fried him. And so, you know, we saw all that he had on his second. They upped the ante to 365.5, and it just wasn't to be. He didn't have the strength. And then the bench was down a bit, right? I think his PB in the bench is if I'm not mistaken, 207.5, I think is his PB. Yep. And, you know, and he only benched 202.5. So something might be going on there with the bench. And then again, in the deadlift, you know, only took 2 attempts, surprisingly, in the deadlift, opened at 315, didn't really look like a very crisp opener, you know, a little bit sluggish. They took the jump to 335, and that was tough. I mean, it was hard. It did not move well. And I think a lot of, you know, people in the audience thought, wow, you know, there's probably not much left in the tank. He had 352.5 loaded up, which would have been a 17.5 kilo jump. And I think that would have moved him, because he was in 10th place. I think that would have moved him just above Gustav in 7th, if I'm not mistaken. That would have taken him to like 99.2% roughly if he'd have connected the dots there. And so it was to kind of trump Gustav. I think that would have put Russ at 911-ish and change or something like that. So just a little surprising that he didn't come out and take the third deadlift. You know, he just kind of came out, shook the hands of the referees, waved to the crowd, you know, at the early stages, you know, prior to hearing him talk afterwards. I think a lot of people thought, hey, did he tweak something? Was he injured? You know, kind of what's going on there. And just the fact that he came out and just decided to bail and just not do the last deadlift was kind of surprising. So ends with an 893.5 total, clearly not where he anticipated that he was going to end, and not where the rest of us thought he was going to end. I think a lot of us had him, you know, going a lot higher. So just kind of an underwhelming performance for him.
Yeah, agreed. I on the live stream, when I seen Russ came out and shake hands and not take his last lift, I had assumed, I had alluded to that either he's injured or he feels like he might get injured. Like, you know, when you sometimes you lift and something tweaks, it's not an injury. Be like, oh shit, better cut that last set. I'm not going back for my last set if you're in the gym or whatever. You're like, I'm going to walk away today. I think I'm towing that line. So this is what I alluded to on the live stream is something must, because you hear Russ in terms of his mentality, Mamba mentality, likens himself to, Kobe, um, LeBron. I know he's a big basketball guy, Jordan, whatever. So this is what I assumed. I don't know if on Russ's recap he fully addressed it, and then I do know that on Joey Flex's he had alluded to some things, but overall, and I'm not going to go full all into that, but overall he alluded that essentially he was probably a little overcooked and
Yep.
came in here fatigued, baked, and so now it's come down to if Russ's wasn't injured, but if he does have to turn this around like Joe B, and we just talked about Taylor Atwood rubbing his hands like, oh, salivating. I'll see you at Nats now that you're cooked, vulnerable, and you have a turnaround. Russ is spoken about the turn. He can't do turnarounds like he used to, and he might not have a choice. So the way this is digestible for myself, who's a massive Russ fan, is not that he quit when the competition wasn't going his way and he wasn't injured, but that he's making the decision. If I have to turn this around, I can't, I'm already overcooked. I need every little piece I have left. If I have to go battle Will Ball, Keiko, Petrie, I mean, the list goes on. I'm not going to name every 93 in the US because I'll be here for another 5 minutes. It's stupid. But that's where it's digestible for me. That's what I need. He hasn't fully addressed it, so I'm leaving that door open for him to address it and be like, here's my reasoning, here's why I said what I said, whatever. And maybe he's still digesting this whole himself because as a whole, obviously, he was shaking his head even after he broke a world record squat, which for most people is insane accomplishment. For him, something was wrong. He left the platform shaking his head like, he was not happy. He knew, oh, I think I'm at the end of my squat. And if you're not going to come out for a lift, you know what the third squat probably would have been. You don't know. You're going to try, right? But that might have been the one that you don't come out for to try to hold some energy and then try to see where you end up on your last dead. But 2020 hindsight, maybe they're thinking, nah, I could still scrummage something together, maybe, but wasn't there, wasn't there. Eric, what are your thoughts? Sort of the battle of the 93s.
Yeah, if we want to go right to like this third poll that Russ didn't take, this was the point where I was like, what is happening? Because now Chell has surprised us all with the 66, which was plenty. Um, Joe Borenstein is in a rough spot. Um, we are seeing Anthony McNaughton not performing to the point he's going to be coming out for his third deadlift that, didn't ended up not going. And then Russ, like you said, the person who has kind of talked a big game as far as the athlete mentality doesn't take his third. And, Matt introduced a movie quote from Star Wars to describe Austin Perkins' performance as being, from another galaxy. Uh, I want to reference another 80s movie that describes how I felt at this point, and that is a quote by the great Bill Murray from Ghostbusters, and that is human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, utter mayhem. And when he's describing to, I believe, the mayor of New York, what would happen if they didn't close the gate that the gatekeeper and the keymaster had opened, or that might be Ghostbusters too. I'm confusing one and two, but nonetheless, great quote, fantastic. And that is where I was at watching this. So I was really surprised. I think those who did not surprise me was Gustav and Emil. And I think now we're actually seeing two truly battle-tested international lifters who've gone through many, many world championships, had their ups and their downs, and they now have a really cool epic rivalry. I think they've both won four. So like they're basically like tied up now. I think if you look across World Championship and
Hmm.
Sheffield battles, I could be wrong, which is cool. So this is like an epic rivalry that has lasted a long time. And yeah, I predicted to put it out there. Here's where I am definitely fell short of my quote unquote expert status is I was like, this is the one that I'm going to stake my claim. Russ is going to be the dominant 93. And yeah, he kind of just deflated a bit on game day. I'm not sure what happened there, but I still do think he's a pretty reflective and honest with himself athlete. So I think he's going to look at this and be like, oh, well, here's an opportunity to shore up the weakness. And I think we still have yet to see his best. I don't think he's going to be that guy who one time flew to the wrong country, then flew to the right country and did a, 10 times body weight, world record total that one time when he went up a weight class. And that's really cool. But then he's a non-factor in the 93s. I do think we're going to see him. Maybe not this year. Maybe though. We'll see. Nationals is going to be quite exciting. We're going to see him reemerge as maybe a more confident 93. Not sure what's quite happening, but yeah, I also thought he must have been injured, and the fact that he wasn't and didn't take the poll it seems out of character. For at least probably maybe how he sees himself. So I think this is a good opportunity for him to reflect.
Rory, what are your thoughts, sir?
Hats off to Emil. Phenomenal day, 920. I gotta say, I think 920 is approximately what we were calling. We were just calling Russell to be higher, was like the original call, right? I think I said 922 for him and 917 for Gustav. So they were like sort of came pretty close to those. Obviously, Gustav had a decent day, not quite looks like he was aiming for about 925. So obviously not quite the 925 that he was aiming for, but like a 910 total is respectable. One of the things that we highlighted is that he is working with a new coach, and like working with a new coach takes a little bit of time to get into the swing of things, to get like the right, get the peak and the taper right, like all of those things. So like, and he's Gustav Hedlund, like at the end of the day. So I think, by the time he gets to Worlds, I imagine that he's going to have he's probably going to have that 925 by the time he gets to Worlds. Emil probably a little disappointed on his bench. He dropped a surprise bomb sort of like the day before Sheffield, I think it was, of him benching 250 with the caption that it was the second time he'd done that week. And then only to walk away with I'm gonna have to put the air quotes on this one, the only 237.5. Imagine only being able to bench 237.5. And so like obviously that was probably pretty disappointing, and he's gonna have to spend some time figuring out what happened there. But like overall, he broke the world record total. He came fourth. He beat the other 93s head to head. Like pretty hard to complain about that day. I won't spend too much time talking about Russell. Like it was, I thought it was pretty clear that he was just off from his squats. Like I kind of could see it probably from about his second squat that something was just like not quite right. I watched his, he put up a video on YouTube just a little while ago, which I watched just before we started recording, and he basically said he didn't use these exact words. So if you're listening, sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but my interpretation of what he said was that his peak and his taper were just not right, and he came in off. Yeah, disappointing. And again, now he's got to compete at PA Nationals, or he's not gonna be able to get to do the other things that he's going to want to do this year. And he's going to need to sort it out, because there are a wall of 93s, like just looking for a chink in the armor, right? And that may have been it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're cooked, you have not a lot of time to uncook, peak, and then battle just murderous row of contenders in 93's US Nats. We'll put a pin in it. We won't go too deep because US Nats, we will have a preview show. So there's conversation around that. Look, we'll really quickly rip through the rest. And obviously, Keenan Lee was also on the podcast and said his story, so we don't need to go super deep on that one. And then we also have the women's. I think we might we'll end this one and do a women's separate, because this one went way longer than we thought we were going to go. And I don't want people tuning in waiting for the women's. I think it's more respectful for them to have their own podcast than to have to wait for 2 hours to get to that spot. But to wrap up the men's, obviously Keenan Lee did a fantastic performance and beat head-to-head Anthony McNaughton, who did not have the day he wanted, was missing lifts. But I am still on the Anthony McNaughton train, and I am not removing my stock in the Anthony McNaughton pool. And I think Anthony McNaughton, now that Keenan Lee will not be showing up at U.S. Nationals, so all that's going to be there will be Keenan Lee's total. So Anthony has a stagnant total to go against, much easier. And I believe Anthony he didn't overly grind on these misses, despite
Same
the
as
fact he
last
was
time.
missing. Sorry?
Same as last time, because the Keenan wasn't in prime time.
That's right.
Correct.
Right. And so
That's
I
right.
think
Yep.
with a similar situation, it's going to be very similar. Keenan's going to have to watch just like last time. And I think Anthony's going to blow it up. He'll be at Dubai. He'll reassert himself. He'll go over 1,000 kilos and all those good things. He might not do over 1,000 kilos of U.S. nationals because he is a little cooked, but he's not too cooked to best this total, I don't think. And I'm still very, very high on Anthony. And I spoke to Anthony at the meet and greet. My man was like, you know what? Hats off to him. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Everybody deserves to have their day, and this is Keenan's day, and he offered no excuses at all. They didn't execute, missed some lifts. It is what it is. And Keenan Lee, not trying to go too quickly over Keenan Lee, he got his time on KOTL in studio and he has a great story and speaks to, listen, I wanted to be a world champion, but I ended up going head to head against the world champion at Sheffield, broke the world record and beat him head to head. So fantastic moment for Keenan Lee, who didn't have the 2025 he wanted, but he sure as hell started 2026 how he wanted. And hopefully we see both those gentlemen at Worlds just like we did last time. Hopefully they both end up in Dubai, and who knows, maybe we see him again at Sheffield. We got a rivalry going now, and Keenan is now living up, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and I'm glad for him as well. Anything else we should throw out there for the men's? Ivan Campano, you had already mentioned, didn't have the day he wanted.
Mm.
And he had said coming in he wasn't probably going to. He was alluding to that. He was hoping he'd be able to break the world record, but he was dealing with some wear and tear. Let's see what he does. He's got no opposition that's a major threat out of Spain, so likely you see him at Worlds. But I tell you what, 59s at Worlds is going to be a battlefield. We got some people rising up. That my man from Indonesia. Can someone drop his name for me, please? Because it's
It's a mouthful.
a mouthful. We're all gonna know his name soon enough, though. I'm telling you, this kid, he's charismatic, he's strong as hell, and he's capable. I quickly, but let's wrap up the men's with this. With the giving the 59s this. Does the 59-kilo world record fall, the longest standing total world record? Does it fall in 2026? Eric?
I'm gonna say yeah. I think Yvonne he can make it come together. It just didn't, unfortunately, and he's walking a bit of a razor's edge, but I think he's got it in him.
Well, there's a couple of people that can do it. So when you say
I,
he's
well,
got it in him,
I think it's Yvonne.
okay. Um, Matt?
No, nope.
Oh,
It's
wow.
gonna stand the test of time. Cornelius's record got broken by Etienne, but Fedosienko's record stands for 2026.
It's Yasa, by the way. It's Igeti Wayu Surya Wiguna Yasa. God bless. We all got to start remembering this kid's name. He's a charismatic, good-looking kid who's crazy
Yasa.
strong, and he could. I think he could do it. Now, Rory, we got two people saying it's not gonna fall in
No, no,
2026.
I said it
Oh, sorry,
would
one person. Sorry,
because
sorry.
we got two Sheffields and Worlds, man. I
That's right.
think
That's right.
there's enough shots.
And
And
Asia's and North
Asia's.
America's.
That's right.
And
That's right.
yeah, so
That's
I
right.
think between Ivan, Waska, Michael Slavik, Yasa,
Michael Slavic.
Worlds, Asia's,
Euros.
with Euros, with the number of meets that we've got coming, with the number of guys who are sort of cooking just under that total, I think it is coming. I'm not going to call who, but I reckon one of those guys can have it this year.
I'm not ready. I'm going to say it falls. I'm not ready to say who either, but the amount of guys that are right around that line, I think it's going to fall. And the fact that so many of these guys from all different regions is amazing and great for powerlifting, and the fact that they're this close makes it amazing as well. I mean, we finally got some. I can't call it battles coming in the 59s, and I can't wait until it all. And it's going to start with Slavic and Waskar at US Nats, and then we'll roll out to the internationals after that. All right, gentlemen. Let's pack this one. Yep, sir.
Yeah, just one final thing, Ryan. I don't think we mentioned Emil Norling, kind of surprising
Yeah.
us. We all right. We all
Yes,
yeah,
please.
we all thought he was going to be a 105, of course, and kind of he was kind of written off as this, he's not going to be able to contend with Keenan and McNaughton, and decides, oh, what the hell, I'll add 5 kilos of body weight because the world record total is only 3 kilos different. And so kind of a chess move there, and the only gentleman to go 9 for 9 hits a PB total to the tune of 957.5
Huge.
kilos, placed 8th overall, and just really an exquisite performance by Emil. And so nice to see his total on the come up. I don't know if this is a permanent thing for him. I suspect it was just kind of a one-off move, and that he will go back down to 105 to represent Team Sweden at Worlds. I don't suspect that he would be a 120, but just interesting that he chose to make this, quote unquote business decision and really had the meat of his life.
I think also like for body weight he put on, and a lot of people are thinking putting Anthony over 1,000 kilos and Etienne just underneath. So then you do the math with the body
Right.
weight he's going to put on, how good he's going to feel, smashing PRs, and then
Yep.
possibly the easier world record to attack percentage wise. Made all the sense in the world. I think it paid off for him, and he felt amazing. Who doesn't like hitting
And
PRs at Sheffield of all places?
and and
Yeah,
and came out and pulled sumo on his third deadlift, right?
yeah, sneaky,
Pulls
sneaky.
pulls
Yeah.
the first two, I believe it was conventional, and then comes out and the ultimate switch hitter like an Aston Ruska or a Bob Matthews who can pull both ways, and pulls the last one sumo to the tune of 380 kilos. So exquisite performance, 9 for 9 and 4 PBs across the board.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you popped that in there. Thank you for covering me. All right. For everybody listening, the women's podcast is dropping as well. Please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, Pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.